Welcome back, everyone. Today we'll learn about GraphRAG, a powerful new method for answering questions using a sophisticated information mapping system. Whether you're new to the concept or looking to deepen your understanding, this video will guide you through what GraphRAG is, how it differs from traditional RAG method, and practical example of how you can use it. So let's jump right in. First question, what is GraphRAG? GraphRAG is a powerful method for answering questions using a specialized information map. Now, that's the official definition of it, but how does it different from traditional RAG, which uses similarity search? Traditional RAG relies on similarity search, which means it tries to match words in the question with those in the documents. GraphRag, on the other hand, creates a comprehensive map of the entire document that illustrates how all facts are interconnected. GraphRag utilizes this knowledge graph, which is generated by LLM, to understand the dataset structure. This holistic view helps it grasp the larger context of the document and enables it to organize the data and identify the themes better. Let's look at a blog post from Microsoft published for this. They've recently published an API for GraphRag this week, which we'll use in this particular video. But let's first look at an example of how does baseline RAG, which uses similarity search, and GraphRag responses are different. For example, what Microsoft did was they used a very complex data set based on the current war between Russia and Ukraine, and they asked it a question. The first question they asked was, "What is New Russia?" Right? The both baseline RAG and GraphRag were able to answer it. But when they tried questioning more deeper questions like what has New Russia done, baseline RAG was not able to answer that because it could not understand the document as a whole. It only tried to do similarity search, with which it was not able to fetch the answer. But GraphRag was able to answer it because all the data points were interconnected, and GraphRag created a map of all of them, and that's where it was able to answer. We'll look at a different example here as well. For example, let's say you have a whole document, right? In this case, they have this particular data set between the Russia and Ukraine war. They are trying to ask the question, what are the top five themes in the data set? Now, if you use the baseline or traditional RAG, uh, it will try to do a similarity search, and with that, it will return some documents, some text based on which your LLM will generate this particular output. Now, obviously, this is a very tough question for a RAG, uh, similarity search RAG to answer because it doesn't understand the document as a whole. But for GraphRag, this is the perfect use case because it understands the whole document, the themes behind it, and that's where it is able to give a much better answer. If you can see here, the points that it has shared, they are really good. So that's how GraphRag is better. You can look at this particular link, which contains more information on how GraphRag differs between how GraphRag is better than baseline RAG. Now we'll look at this API that Microsoft has released this week. I think it was released on 2nd or 3rd of July. It says 4 days ago, so 2nd of July. We can use this GraphRag API on our local system and use our own documents to, to generate answers from it. In this particular example, we won't use a Python notebook. We'll try to use command line tools that this API offers, right? So the first step to use this GraphRag API by Microsoft is just install GraphRag, pip install GraphRag, right? So what I did was, if I go to command line, if I go to my terminal here, I created a new virtual environment and then I installed pip install GraphRag. If I go to the dependencies that it installed, you'll see that it automatically installed OpenAI and everything that it needed. We don't need to install anything else, right? Once you have completed this installation, the next step is wherever you have your virtual environment created. For example, in my case, I've created the virtual environment here. I've created this input directory, right? Where I've placed my text file based on which I want to run my RAG, right? What does this text file include? It includes the 2024 UK election result, which came out a couple of days back. So LLM in general does not know about it. That's where this is new information. If I go back to the folder here, you can see all of these folders are by default created by virtual environment. I've created the input directory. The next step, let's see what we have done here. So what we have done until now is pip install GraphRAG. We created an input directory and we placed the test document that we want to run RAG on. Next thing that we need to do is initialize the GraphRAG API in our local system. Now, for that, what we need to do is GraphRAG Index hyphen hyphen init hyphen hyphen root and then dot, which indicates initialize in the current directory. Once you've done that, so I did that here. Uh, Let me show that. Yeah. So I've done that here. Initialize at root in my current working directory. That's where you will see all of these folders and files get created, right? So initially when we created the virtual environment, these four folders got created. Then I created this input directory and then I initiated this GraphRag API. That's where all of these folders and files got created. Going back to our document, next thing that we need to do is set up API key. Now I've tried setting up the API key using window. I'm working on Windows. I've tried setting up using setx and set, but that did not work. So what I did was I went into the settings.yaml file, right? If I show you the settings.yaml file, it is here. And I've hard coded the API key here where I'm using GPT-4 Turbo Preview model. All of this is by default there. What you can do here is just set the API key. If you're facing issues with setting up environment variable, just set up the API key directly here. There is a second place where you need to set up the API key. That's where when we are using embedding model. So once you have set up the API key here and here, you should be good. There is one more part that I should mention here is until now we were using these API keys, right? User API keys. But for using GraphRag, we should be using project-based API keys, which are newer. So I created a new secret key here, and that's what I've used. I'll be deleting all of these API keys, so none of these will work after this particular video. The next step, once you've set the API key in the settings.yaml file, next step that you need to do is index the document that you have pasted in the input directory. How does the GraphRag API know that there is an input directory and there is a file inside that? This particular settings.yaml by default looks at input directory and by default looks at text file in that particular directory. If you have created any other folder apart from input, just replace that here and it will index your documents from that particular directory. Once your documents are indexed, I'll show how the document indexing went. So I ran document indexing here. I faced errors a couple of times, but after I had hard-coded my API key into settings.yaml file, I did not face any issues and embeddings got created successfully and the GraphRag was created, right? The next step, if I go back to our notebook, the next step is we run a global search or a local search. Now, using GraphRag, we can run these two types of searches. First, we'll look at what is a local search. Local search leverages a smart knowledge map, the graph that is created, and the original text of the document to pinpoint the detailed answer to our question. So this method excels in answering queries that demand specifics about that particular document. For instance, if you ask what are the ingredients for a healthy cold coffee, and if that is there in the document, local search will gather details from the knowledge map and the original document, ensuring you precise and comprehensive answer. Whereas in case of global search goes through global search first generates summaries. So when we ran this indexing, it also created summaries for the entire document. And that's where global search comes into picture. Global search goes through these system generated summaries to answer broader queries. For example, let's say you have a whole document about healthy meals, healthy recipes, right? And you ask a broader question like, what are the most popular ingredients for healthy meals? Global search scans these summaries for getting that particular answer for you. This is ideal for finding trends like this within the data. So to summarize, local search is tailored for specific queries, whereas global search excels at providing comprehensive insights within that particular document. So for first, I've ran a question using global search. The question is who won the elections? I can run it with hyphen hyphen method global. If I go back here, uh, I've ran it here, method global, who won the elections. It gave me a comprehensive answer saying 2024 UK election was won by Labour Party and complete details for it, right? Next, I ran a local search. How do you run the local search? You just change the method name to local. Earlier we used hyphen hyphen method global. This time we are using hyphen hyphen method local. And we ask the same question. You will definitely notice differences between both of these answers because global search is searching in the summary of the document, whereas local search is searching in the entire document and the graph, the map that is generated by the API. So that's all that I wanted to cover in this particular video. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please like and subscribe and stay tuned for more content. For now, goodbye.